Hey everybody, welcome again to You Can't Come Over, but you can come in. In a few minutes, you are going to get to eavesdrop on my conversation with Martina McBride, which was really another bucket lister for me. So I hope y'all enjoy it as much as I do, as much as I did, I should say. We recorded it last week. And so I thought, much like Reba, I thought maybe I'd play a few songs that brought me to Martina as a fan. This first one, I don't know how many people will know this one. Martina's first single was a song called "The Time Has Come," and I think a lot of you will know that song. This was her second single, I think. And boy, it was this. I love "The Time Has Come," but this was what made me a fan of hers. I'll play you just a little bit of it. There's a photo in an album he don't notice anymore. That's me. That's me. There's a stack of cards and letters buried deep inside a drawer. That's me. That's me. And the shirt that I once slept in, hanging loose behind a door, tossed aside so carelessly. That's me. Oh, that's me. If you have not heard that song, check it out. That's me. I think you'll love it. Then the next thing I remember of Martina was this next one, and it was also Martina is who introduced me to Gretchen Peters, as we talk about that in the chat. So When You Were Old was on her first album, and I've always loved that song. But then on her next album, she had a couple of Gretchen songs, and I might be getting some of this wrong. It's hard for me to know all the chords to these songs and to try to get the lyrics right and get my facts straight. So I apologize, not only to you guys, but to Martina if I have any of this wrong. But I remember this. I remember the video so well because it was so many really bright colors. Don't need no copy of Vogue magazine. Don't need to dress like no beauty queen. High heels or sneakers, he don't give a damn. My baby loves me just the way that I am. My baby loves me just the way that I am. He never tells me I'm not good enough, just gives me unconditional love. Loves me tender, loves me mad, loves me silly, and he loves me sad. Thinks I'm pretty, thinks I'm smart. He likes my nerve and he loves my heart. He's always saying he's my biggest fan. My baby loves me just the way that I am. My baby loves me just the way that I am. And of course, on that same record was really a song that defined Martina and made her different than so many other artists that she was willing to record a song like this. Once again, this is another Gretchen Peters song. Well, she seemed all right by dawn's early light, though she looked a little worried and weak. She tried to pretend he wasn't drinking again, but Daddy left the proof on her cheek. I was only 8 years old that summer, but I always seemed to be in the way. So I took myself down to the fair in town on Independence Day. Well, word gets around in a small, small town. They said he was a dangerous man, but Mama was proud and she stood her ground. She knew she was on the losing end. Some folks whispered, some folks talked, but everybody looked the other way. And when time ran out, there was no one about on Independence Day. Let freedom ring, let the white dove sing, let the whole world is a day of a reckoning. Let the weak be strong. Let the right be wrong. Roll the stone away. Let the guilty pay. It's Independence Day. I'll tell you what, not that Reba's songs were easy, but Martina, I just don't know, and you'll see me go on about this in our interview. There's not a better vocalist. I mean, there are those who are as good, but there's nobody better. I had to really drop the keys on those and just try to fake my way through them. So anyways, I hope that you, like I said, will enjoy my conversation with Martina every bit as much as I did. And if you're watching, thank you, Martina, for taking the time to do this. And here we go. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of You Can't Come Over, But You Can Come In. We have one of my favorite artists of all time today, Martina McBride, joining us. Hello, Martina.
Hi.
So you're in Nashville. How are you dealing with this quarantine?
You know, I'm kind of a homebody anyway. It's like my daily life hasn't changed all that much. I'm not a person that needs to be on the go all the time. So, but you know, it has its challenges for sure. I've been lucky that all three of my daughters have been here. My middle daughter lives in New York, but she's been home. So we've just been spending a lot of family time.
You know, you just mentioned something. I always have a couple questions, and one thing, it's more of a comment. I've always that I was going to talk about later in this, but you brought up your daughters, so I'll just bring it up right from the get-go. I was thinking this morning when I was getting ready about how I've always been a huge fan of yours, but when I thought, oh, you know, you think of someone who's, and I'm guilty of this, like an artist that you admire, you don't think of them as a real person, or I don't. Like, they're this superhuman being. And you posted when your oldest daughter was moving away on Instagram. I still remember, it makes me kind of choke up when I think about it. And it really touched me because I saw such a, beyond just this superhuman singer and songwriter and artist that I had admired, this amazing mother. I remember you talking about how, if I remember right, you kind of hoped she wanted to move home, but mostly you didn't.
Yeah.
So unselfish.
That was when Emma moved. My middle daughter, she moved to LA. She was 19 years old and she wants to be an actress. So she moved to LA. Now she lives in New York, which is closer. So I like that better. But yeah, you know, it's a bittersweet thing when your kids leave home. It's like you want, it's so exciting because it's their time, you know, to fly and to explore and to figure out who they are. And it's so exciting to see that as a mother. But you know, it's also, they're out there and they're not home and they're, you know, making their own decisions. And all you can do is just hope that you raise them well enough that they're prepared.
Oh, that's so nice. I mean, it was touching then, it's still touching now. But I love that there's that part of you. And I even remember, you know, reading that you chose to not tour as much so that you could be there for your girls, which is admirable.
Well, yeah, when Delaney, my oldest, when she's 25 now, but when she was born, until the time she started school, we just took her with us everywhere. She really grew up on the road. And then when kindergarten age came around, I remember telling John that I really wanted her to have, you know, a similar kind of experience like I had, and kind of settle down and go to school every day and have little friends, and it really needed to be about her for a little while. And so we just started touring on weekends mostly, and, you know, stopped touring overseas as much, and just kind of held our summer as the time, which it really isn't that much different from what a lot of artists do. But yeah, we cut back quite a bit. But I mean, I wouldn't trade it for anything. You know, it was those precious times when I was able to like be a room mother at school and take cookies and be there for Pioneer Day or whatever it is, all the little things they celebrate, 100-day celebration or whatever. So it was like, it's precious.
Oh, I love that. So I'll get off of that part of your life and get onto music. I love to start these with asking, what do you remember the first song you heard as a child that made you want to do more than listen to music? That made you want to write or sing,
Hmm.
or a couple of songs. Some people have a
Yeah.
hard time.
Yeah, I always have a hard time narrowing things down, but probably, I mean, when I was really young, I didn't know there was any other kind of music besides country music. Um, so I listened to Patsy Cline and a lot of male artists because my dad was a band leader. He had a band, a country band, local band, and so grew up listening to a lot of like Merle Haggard and Buck Owens, and then later Waylon and Johnny Paycheck, and just Hank Jr. And but when so I always knew that I wanted to sing, and I can't remember the first song that made me really um, decide that. But I remember that when I turned probably 13, I discovered Linda Ronstadt, and it was all over. Like I just wanted to sing like that, And I grew up in a very rural area. We didn't have any kind of singing teachers or anything, so she was really my teacher. I just put on those records and would sing for hours and hours and hours. Um, just trying to emulate the dynamics and the tone and the range and the vibrato, all of it, and then later I got into like Pat Benatar, and I wanted to sing like that, and Bonnie Raitt. And so for me, it wasn't necessarily a particular song, but it was definitely those tenors that shaped. And I just knew I wanted to do that. That's like I want to be Linda Ronstadt. I want to be Pat Benatar. I want to be Bonnie Raitt. I want to be on stage singing and making records.
That doesn't shock me. When I think of great female singers that I have loved in the last 25 years, you and Trisha Yearwood to me are at the top of that heap. And I would put both of you in the same category as Linda Ronstadt. So that makes sense to me. Do you remember, was it Heart Like a Wheel or was it pre Heart Like a Wheel?
I think that the first record I got, we had a little Ben Franklin store in this little tiny town I grew up on a farm, but it was 10 miles away. And they had a record bin at the front of the store. And I can remember going, very limited selection. So I think the first Linda Ronstadt album that I found was the first Greatest Hits record,
Okay.
And just devoured that record. And then I loved, I can't think of the name of the album. It has Lose Again on it. And
was that Hasting Down the Wind?
yeah, that's it. Yeah, I love that record.
Such a great record. My mom, I grew up loving Linda Ronstadt also, and she was like the pinnacle. My mom would listen to Blue Bayou over and over. And I remember she would say, if you can sing that song, you can really sing, and but man, Linda Ronstadt, she's really starting to she's always been recognized, but I feel like in the last couple of years, people are really, appreciating what she's done, which is amazing to see.
Yeah, and also what I always loved about her is I felt like her song selection, like she kind of defied genres, like when Back in the USA came out, I remember thinking, oh, she's a rock singer, and then she did the kind of the punk record, and then it was opera, and then it was, but early on in her career, it was really, really country influenced, And so I love the fact that she just sort of floated around and just sang whatever she felt like singing at the time.
Yeah. I think probably that early influence, one of the things I love about you as an artist is I feel like, well, I don't feel like it, I know it, you have made stunning albums. Like when I think of your albums, they are complete pieces of work. And that's very much a Linda Ronstadt sort of thing. And I was even thinking about, for me, most of my favorite songs on your records weren't singles, and I loved the singles, but I would hang on. You have that art, that you're a true artist in that you've made records that are real records. Was that you? Was that I mean, were there people around you encouraging that, or was that always your vision?
Thank you for saying that, by the way, because some of my favorite songs of mine are album cuts too.
Oh,
um, but I think, you know, my first producer, and I think we made 7 records together, was Paul Worley. And um, just a mentor, taught me everything I know about making records, because I was so green. Obviously I knew nothing about making records. And I think I always went into it thinking I wanted to have a well-rounded album that had a lot of different, I don't know, just a full story. Obviously, we were also wanting to record hit singles. So, but I think he had a lot to do with that. You know, he was a really great song guy, and we would listen to thousands of songs together. We call it our sack of songs, and we just sit down and, you know, go through all the demos. And so we both had a really high bar for material, and so he helped me a lot with finding great songs and um and kind of creating a complete album. I think that was a lot of his influence. Yeah.
you know, I think about, like, you had a song on The Way That I Am called Strangers. It was a Bobby Braddock song. Like, you know, and at the time that came out, I didn't live in Nashville yet, so I didn't understand the way radio singles work. And I remember I was just waiting for the day that I would hear that on the radio. And I
Me.
never did. So it was on hot rotation in my car. But there were just always, you know, the first song that drew me to you, and it was a single, but it wasn't your first single. It was a song called That's Me.
Yeah.
And I saw it on CMT and would watch it. I mean, would wait for it to come on there. And you just had, I mean, I don't want to gurm you too much, but you have those kinds of songs. To me, those two songs are similar. They just hit me in the heart in a certain way. And there's enough of a thread of that through all your songs. And I know Paul, and he's so amazing too, but I know that has to be mostly you that gravitates towards that.
Well, I love great songwriters. That's why I love you so much. You're one of my favorite
Oh,
songwriters.
you're so nice. Thank you.
And I have such a respect for songs, and yeah, I've been able to find some really great songs. Strangers, I wanted it to be a single so bad. I fought and fought and fought for it to be a single, but you know, but yeah, I just love great songs. I mean, there's nothing. I started writing pretty late in my career, and I enjoy songwriting to a certain extent. I'm not a person that writes every day.
Mhm.
Kind of it takes a lot of discipline for me. But because I grew up listening to people like Linda who are interpreters of songs, I was always comfortable interpreting a song and making it my own. And there's something about when you find a song that you feel like it was written for you, or you just cannot wait to sing it, and it's like a gift. You know, it's such a gift to me as a singer. So I'm really I've been really fortunate to have heard some great songs in my career.
When you introduced me to one of my favorite songwriters who have also had on here, Gretchen Peters, with When You Were Old. And then, you know, then the next album you had 2 songs of hers. And I'd love to hear specifically Independence Day, what that was like hearing that demo. Did you know right away, oh, I have to cut this?
Yeah, I just got chills when you said that. Still, after all these years, Paul played that for me. He said, "I think there's a song you need to hear," and he played it for me. And by the second chorus, I was like, by the end of the first chorus, I was like, "That's my song. I want to sing that song." And I was drawn to the story. Well, first of all, it's a brilliant song. That
Yeah.
song, if you write it on paper and read it, it's just like it's so well written. And I recognized that in it, and I love the story, and I love the fact that it was told from the point of view of the child. And I'd never heard a song like it before, and I didn't ever really even know or think of it as a single, or whether it would be a single. I just knew that in my heart, I knew that it was a song that somebody needed to hear.
Mhm.
There's somebody out there that needs to hear this song to make them feel like they're not crazy and they're not the only one going through this. And I was also very sheltered, being that I grew up in a town, you know, went to school in a town of like 200 people, super rural, close-knit community, never talked about domestic violence. Like, it was never brought up. I didn't know, you know, that it was the scope of it even. And that song changed my life, because not only did it change my career, but it really awakened this passion in me to try to do something to help and to make a difference in that area. So it changed. Yeah, that song changed my life.
I think it changed a lot of lives. I mean, I'm lucky I have never had to deal with domestic violence in my house as a kid or as an adult, but it definitely talked about something that people didn't talk about, and oh, I think it opened a lot of eyes, and like I think it probably made a lot of people in that situation not so scared to ask for help. I mean, I remember at the end of the video there was like a hotline. I think it was a hotline number to call, and those things are big. I mean, that was, and I'm sure that song was probably met with some resistance at some level of, oh, this might be too much.
Yeah, you know, the president of my label, Joe Galante, I have to give him credit. He was never ever afraid of any kind of song like that. Like he was all for Concrete Angel, um, God's Will, Independence Day, Broken Wing, all of those songs. He was a champion for those songs, which I really appreciate. Never had to fight for those songs to be released, but um, it was met with a lot of resistance at radio. So we had 10 stations that never ever added the song or would play it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
It was just so I guess just people were afraid of it.
Yeah, too bad. But I mean,
People that program radio stations.
yeah, it still got through. So
Yeah.
So since you're, you know, clearly such a great, it's not only interpreter of songs but picker of songs, wanted to ask you: are there any songs that were sent your way that you passed on, that you've thought, or like, oh, why did I not record that?
I passed on Wild One by Faith.
Uh-huh.
I don't know that I don't know that I've missed too many. I mean, that was the one that, and then I had Who I Am. Just remember Jessica Andrews had Who I Am.
Oh, that's a yes.
Yeah, I had that on hold for a while, but she was perfect. It was,
Yeah,
songs end up going where they need to. I believe they end up where they need to be.
that says, that to me even solidifies more like who you are as an artist, because you know, a lot of times you'll ask people that question, be it, I mean, I haven't sat down with any actors, but is there a role you wish you would have taken?
Mm-hmm.
Or, and they'll say, oh yeah, I should have been, I mean, Michelle Pfeiffer was supposed to play Clarice Starling in Silence of the Lambs.
Wow.
Can't even imagine that, you know, that's Jodie Foster. But I think a lot of times an artist that doesn't know who they are might have 15 songs that they would say they wish they had recorded, and they're all hits. And I think that's why they wish they would have recorded them. Whereas you just mentioned two songs that, you know, great songs, but weren't you. Yeah. That just says a lot. So what, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the Timeless record, because your version, and it's it was the first record you produced all on your own, correct?
Well, I did Waking Up Laughing, which I think came before that. That was the first record I did on my own, but yeah.
Okay, well, I'm sorry if I got that out of order, but so impressive to me, because that Covers album is so great, and your version of Rose Garden, it brought that song back. Like, it was just amazing. I'd love to hear how that came about. You know, you just take it.
Well, you know, I can't take a lot of credit for the production on that record. I mean, I put together a fantastic group of musicians who were so loving and passionate about that music and about that project. Really just students of all of those original players. And so it was like a joy to hear them bring those songs to life, and everybody had such a reverence and respect for the original versions. And I mean, like when I look back, if I could change, I mean, I don't know that I'd change anything about Timeless, but I worked really hard to get things to be so authentic, and like sometimes I feel like the way I interpreted those songs was so traditional and so with respect to the original, you know, but like I don't know what I'm trying to say. Like, I don't know, sometimes I think, well, maybe I should have done something a little different with those songs, but God, you know, they were such great records, and what do you do different? Like, you know?
I mean, you're talking to the wrong person. That would have been sacrilegious to me. I mean, that's what I love about that album is a song like, I mean, I grew up listening to very traditional country, much like you did, but Rose Garden, when you brought that song back, I was like, oh my God, I forgot about that. Like, it was just amazing. And I met Lynn Anderson when that was going on at CMA Fest.
Yeah.
And she was just on cloud nine about it, you know, and what a gift to give somebody like that, you know. That was just a gift that you gave her.
Well, that album, I got to sing that with her on stage at the Opry, which was such a thrill for me. She was so sweet. But that album was really just a labor of love, and I remember thinking I wanted to do it. I know Alan Jackson had done that covers record.
Another record.
Yeah, and I was on tour with him, and I brought it up. I said, you know what I really want to do? I want to make a record of, you know, some classic country songs that shaped me and I grew up listening to. And he's like, you should do it. So I went to my label head, Joe Galante, and asked him. He's like, absolutely. And everybody was so open to the idea. I kind of went in with a small list, but it was so spontaneous, that record, because what we would do is we would get on iTunes or whatever, and we would just like go through and listen to songs, and if one hit us, we'd be like, yeah, let's do that song. Or like I had a bunch of like, you know, like Ray Price and Chris Christopher. There was like a wide variety of artists on that record that I don't know, I'm proud of it too. Thank you for saying that.
Oh, it's like I said, I mean, I really do, and I'm not just blowing smoke. You have not made a bad record. They're all really great, and I'd love to know, like right now, like where's your heart now? Like, what's the next record you want to make, or what's the dream, the dream record that you'd love to make? Like you talk about Linda Ronstadt doing an opera album and all these different things. I feel like you're that kind of singer that can live in a lot of different worlds.
You know, I really want to make a record that's kind of stripped down and more acoustic and really rich harmonies, and kind of. I always set out to make like a Creedence Clearwater Revival record, or like a band, you know, real rootsy kind of country Americana record, and so I always start out to make that record. That's what I started out to make, Reckless, and then I found that song Reckless, and I was like, oh, I love this song, and it kind of took it into this different place, the whole album. But next record I make, I'm going to stick with it. You know, I'm going to stick with my original vision, and I always have songs like that on every record, like where I used to have a heart and different songs that always fit that category. But yeah, I'd like to do more of a stripped down record.
I think that would be, I mean, I'd be first in line to buy that record. I remember seeing you, the first time I saw you live, it was with Tim McGraw at the Puyallup Fair.
Oh yeah?
Yes. And Wild Angels was not out yet. I mean, that album wasn't. But I remember you sang a song, Phones Are Ringing All Over Town. And I waited, and there was this record store, back when there were record stores, a record store called Sight and Sound. And I waited outside of it to buy your record and to buy Tim's Everywhere record. Like both of those, or was it Everywhere? No, All I Want Is a Life was Tim's record. And so I'll be in line to buy that stripped down record too. I'm online on iTunes.
Oh, thank you. Well, Phones Are Ringing All Over Town. I love that song. We still do that in sound check sometimes.
Oh, so good. You know, I mean, you've always got one on every record that I just can't get beyond, like listening to again and again. Evolution, it was wrong again. Like I just couldn't stop listening to that song. Had to learn it on guitar. Just there's always, I mean, all the like I said, they're great top to bottom. Wrong Baby Wrong off of Shine. That was a song that just was like an earworm. That, or I call it a heartworm too. It gets inside.
Yeah. Thank you.
So I've kept you a while. I'll ask you one more question and then I'll let you get on with your day. Your first album came out in 1992. Between now and then, what has changed the most about music business and music, and what has changed the least?
Well, I think the least is people still respond to a great song. If a song makes you feel something, people still respond to that. A great song is a great song. It's subjective, but we all know it when we hear it, Yeah. And then the thing that's changed the most is just the whole model. I came up in a time when albums were really the main way of purchasing music, and before streaming. And it was just so I'm so grateful that I had that, because it was like the dream that I had when I was a kid, right? I got to experience the dream that I had when I was a kid, was making albums and having people hold the album, even though it was a CD by the time I got there. But you know what I mean? Like having a physical thing to carry around with you, and so I loved that, and I was really grateful to be in that time in music. And now I'm slowly getting used to the streaming, I have to say. It's taken me a while, and I buy a lot of vinyl now, but I'm getting used to it. I can see the convenience of it, and obviously there are things that need to be worked out, and when it comes to songwriters and all of that, the pay. But so I think that's the biggest change, don't you think?
Yeah. I mean, because I've always been an album. I think in albums, like when I invested in an artist, it was for an album. A single might bring me in, but it was really an album that kept me. I mean, I would go to Target or Walmart in back in the 90s when I was in high school and didn't have a lot of money, and spend my whole paycheck on CDs, like, and just I've always loved artwork. Like it's where I discovered people like Gretchen Peters and Paul Worley. You mentioned Paul Worley, by seeing their names in liner notes. I definitely miss that. I was very resistant to Spotify because of being a songwriter. Like I wouldn't even look at it.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. One night I was riding on a late night car ride with somebody who was trying to stay up, and he handed me his phone and said, "Hey, can you like play DJ?" And it was Spotify.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw in 3 songs why people love it. It was like I was like a kid in a candy store, because like say I was to click on You and Timeless and Rose Garden, and then it might take me to Lynn Anderson, and that would take me to Gene Watson, and then it's a great music discovery tool. And definitely. Also, I mean, when you give somebody something for free, they don't want to pay for it.
So, those days are gone.
But all that to be said, I do think there's still a place for albums. I look really forward to your next album. And thanks for your music. Thanks for doing this today, but mostly, thanks for not only being a great singer, but, you talk about those songs you've recorded and written. Thanks for those, because there's some little girl or little boy somewhere listening to those songs like Independence Day and thinking, man, I could write or sing about the real truth. So thank you.
Well, thank you for saying that. And that's what I love about your writing too. It's so real, and it's so great, and it's so varied. There's funny song. The song that killed me, I was actually just listening to it a couple of days ago, and I'm going to script the title. This is The Past is the Past.
Past is the past, yeah.
I love that so much. And you have so many songs that are just, I love so many. So thank you for having me. And I love that we got to talk.
Me too. This was great.
Yeah. Yeah, it was
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Brandy.
Bye.